So several weeks ago, um, I was teaching a lesson, and it's amazing that there's times that as I teach a lesson, there's three or four other lessons that sort of pop out. They sort of stick out, and they say, "Hey, this is something that maybe we should look at." And one of the lessons that popped out was around. We were talking about questions and stuff like that, and the lesson that came to mind is, should we look at the principles of thought? And Gary, it was right about where you were sitting. Corinne shook her head yes rather vigorously. I think she elbowed Josh at the same time, but neither one of them are here to defend themselves. So that I'll use that as maybe, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, how we think is so important. Now, as I was sort of teasing out before we started with our core values, I had a plan for this week, and my plan was greatly disrupted. Over the course of the last month, my brother's had some type of health issue, and it has resulted in him being in the emergency room four times. The fourth time happening this past Wednesday. Um, I had gone out to camp at breakfast. I had gone to meet with an old coworker after that, and then I had sort of a panicked call from my dad saying, "Hey, your brother's not doing well. Can you stop over and see him?" Um, Now, what I ever did to my dad, I don't know. I don't know what he thought I was going to fix in that situation. It certainly wasn't anything I've been able to fix in the previous 3 weeks. And one of the things that came to mind was, as I listened to how he spoke, and I could tell that he was not thinking well. Um, And so the end result of the day was around 6 o'clock. The decision was made to go to the emergency room again. This would have been for the fourth time. And I guess just before that, he was struggling, and I said, "Do you need somebody to help you make a decision?" And I don't know that he responded to that, but I said, "If you need somebody to make a decision for you, this is what I would tell you to do. I would tell you to go to the emergency room," and we had a whole list of things that we were going to go with them. And my intent, because I'm selfish, that was very, very obvious to me this week, how much I struggle with selfishness. Um, because I was selfish, I said, "Well, hey, I'll take your son, my nephew, you and your wife, you go to the emergency room." I thought I was being helpful. I thought I was being helpful. So his wife takes his son, and they go to start packing stuff up, because I mean, what's cooler than spending the night with your favorite uncle in the middle of camp week, right? Uncle's not going to care what you eat, what you drink. Like, it's going to be a free for all. I'm telling you. That's what the plan was. That's what the plan was. And my brother looked at me and he said, "Why can't you go with me?" Um, and there wasn't really a good reason why I couldn't, other than some selfishness, because I knew it was going to be a late night. It was 6 o'clock. I I knew the objective was to get him admitted for some more significant observation and perhaps testing. And I knew it was just going to be a late night. End result is he was admitted. End result is he has been treated. And just to give away the end of the story, he is home. He is home. He seems to be doing better. That night, though, that night, and Trace, don't let me forget to tell the story of what else happened that night. But that night, I didn't get to leave the hospital till 3 a.m. I got home. I think I got home at 3:23 a.m. And I've been struggling ever since physically to sort of catch up with that. Um, that was something that over the last couple of weeks, just watching my brother go through this, highlighted to me the need to talk about how we think. And so in full transparency, just this is not the lesson that I thought it would be. So just so you know, there's another lesson coming. There's another one coming. This is not the one that I thought it would be, but I think this is going to be a very helpful lesson for you. I think that as you consider some of these things, you may see the opportunity for you to begin to upgrade life almost immediately by changing how you think. Most people underestimate the power of their thoughts, but what we think determines very much how we live. Thoughts can lift us up, thoughts can tear us down. And that's what I was watching with my brother. I was watching his own thoughts tear him down over the last couple of weeks. Thoughts can bring peace, and thoughts can bring sickness. Have you ever heard the expression worried to death? That is a real thing. You can do that. Thoughts can empower your faith. Thoughts can sow fear. And this is not something new. We're going to look at what the Bible tells us about this. I will give you, well, I won't give you that right now. We'll see. Maybe I'll give that to you. I don't know. That's appropriate. Sarah, I think you were giving me a hard, or somebody was giving me a hard time. Was it you, Kathy or Sarah was giving me a hard time before I started and I didn't have the scripture on the board. And I don't. There's a lot. There's a lot. Bob, take notes on how to bury people with scripture here, okay? We are going to start, and for those of you that have the Bible app, I want you to open your Bible app. I want you to turn to the King James Version. And I want you to look at Proverbs 23:7. Who has the Bible app open to Proverbs 20? This is a participation part of the lesson. You have it, Michelle? You mind sharing that with us?
Heart, so is he. Eat and drink, saith he to thee, but his heart is not with thee.
The first part of that. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Now, if you go and you flip that over to different translations, you're going to get a different perspective on that verse. I really appreciate how the King James Version translates that, but it gives us a very important concept. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Um, this is to give us just the direction that we go how we think. We go how we think. This one's probably a little more familiar to you, Romans 12:2. Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Paul tells us that transformation, Paul tells us that changes in your life start with a renewed mind. A renewed mind. And it's not just behavior modification, it's thought modification. Now, you'll remember I have shared with you, this is what I was thinking about sharing with you just a moment ago. And I don't know that this marker is going to hold up. Trace, will you see if I have another black marker in that bag, please? Um, we've used this stickman model before, right? So we have the stickman, and we have our conscious thoughts, and we have our unconscious thoughts. Um, and oh, thank you. And what we have talked about is how our unconscious thoughts drive so much of what we do, right? Our unconscious, our beliefs, our unconscious thoughts, they drive so much of what we do, right? So yesterday, park cleanup day. So let me take you back. This also factors into my week. On Wednesday, I get the call, go sit with your brother. I go to sit with my brother. I had not had lunch. I am sitting with my brother. My brother has not been able to eat and has lost 15 to 20 pounds at that point. And the only thing that's within eye shot of where I'm sitting is a box of Slim Jims. You know, now I don't know if you have you ever read the label of a Slim Jim?
Don't do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's a little bit of an adventure. It's a little bit of an adventure on that label of a Slim Jim, but I'm apparently fond of mechanically separated chicken. And so I had four of these little, and because my brother can't eat, I'm trying to like smuggle it and eat it where I'm trying to commiserate with him to some extent, right? But I eat four of these little Slim Jims. And now it comes time because this also factored into, not wanting to go to the emergency room because I did want to eat. I did want to eat. And so fortunately, I took a separate car and I went through the drive-through at Burger King. And I got not one, but two double cheeseburgers for dinner. So I had four Slim Jims and two double cheeseburgers to eat on Wednesday. Yesterday, camp cleanup day, whatever, I thought it would be a really good idea to go to my core diet. Now, those of you that have been with me a long time know my core diet. I went out powered on a cinnamon roll and a bottle of Coke. I've been out of potato chips for weeks now. There is a travesty happening in my house. I will tell you that. The travesty. But and don't I mean look at me. I'm the one that buys the chips. I said you need to you need to make some better choices. You need to think better. Those thoughts you're having aren't serving you well. And it was a rough day. It was so I had. I had a cinnamon roll for lunch yesterday. Whenever I got home, I thought I'll turn over a new leaf, literally, and I had a salad. There's a whole story about the overabundance of lettuce out at camp. I ended up with a pillow of lettuce at home, and I decided I was going to take a shot at putting a dent in it yesterday with bacon. Um, just as an aside. Uh, I'm not an animal. Come on. Uh, so so anyway, I had that salad. I don't know when it was, 6 o'clock, and then a little bit later, I decided that probably wasn't quite enough for me yesterday. So I had this giant bowl of ice cream. So I'm not powered on the right nutrients right now. That's for sure. But we have to understand that we have the conscious thoughts and we have the unconscious thoughts. And so I have this unconscious thought that it really doesn't matter if I eat good food or bad food. Any food is fine. You can tell that by my physique, right? You don't look at this guy, you don't look at me and say, man, this guy could probably run fast. Nobody thinks that, right? And we have to understand that what happens is as we think thoughts and as we think them again and again and again and again and again and again and again, what happens is conscious thoughts become unconscious thoughts. Like this, in the examples that I typically use, the stuff that we can all identify with is you had to learn how to brush your teeth, right? Those were conscious thoughts to learn. And most of us go to the dentist and well, maybe it's not most of us, maybe it's just me. Go to the dentist and we're told that we're not brushing correctly. Anybody else? Just me? You're missing some spots here. You have blah, blah. Or they talk about flossing. Anybody have the flossing conversation at the dentist? Right? Those are conscious thoughts to floss. And if you do it enough, it becomes automatic, unconscious. Same with driving a vehicle, right? You're driving, the first time you do it, it's like, this is a little bit weird, right? But you do it enough, you get to the point where you can be driving down the highway and you can miss your exit. Your head can be somewhere else, but your unconscious mind can somehow keep that car on the road. And based on what happens up here, has the result in the actions that we do and the results that we get. Right? So the phrases that I use is thoughts drive beliefs, beliefs drive behaviors, and behaviors drive results. So when Paul tells us to be transformed, if we want to have a different result, it starts in a pattern like this. It starts with our thoughts. Because otherwise, we can try a behavior for a little bit, but if the thought doesn't support it, the behavior is not going to last. Now, this is a model I can't, I can probably partially try to extract this from Scripture. So you may find a better model. This one I found works pretty well. So I'll give you that disclaimer. But if we want to have, life change, we need to recognize that it starts with thought change. Second Corinthians 10:5. Paul writes, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And make note what he says next. And he says, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We must take thoughts and make them obedient. Thoughts must be disciplined and brought under Christ's spiritual authority. Philippians 4:8. Paul tells us, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Think about such things. Paul gives us a filter for godly thinking. We should think about whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, whatever is excellent. These are the things that we should spend our time thinking about. I confuse you, Kathy? Okay. I got to give you a contrast. When I first started teaching a Bible class, I remember given a homework assignment. And the homework assignment was this: what is the saddest verse in the Bible? And the saddest verse in the Bible is Genesis 6:5. And I'm going to put verses. Genesis 6:5. This is the story right before the flood. It says, the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Only evil all the time. Even as we look back into ancient history, judgment comes not just from behavior, but from corrupted thoughts. So we must recognize that how we think is of great importance. I also need somebody to keep me accountable for time today. Where are we at? I have this watch, but because I don't, it's old and I use it because it tracks my steps, even though I'm not getting 10,000 steps a day right now. But it's so old that I can hear it sort of buzz whenever I hit the display, but I can't see the display. It sort of just tracks silently. We 10 after? Okay, give me another 25 minutes. I don't think we'll get through this all today. Um, why does this matter? Why does this matter? It matters because if God searches hearts and examines thoughts, then we have to do the same. We have to search our hearts. We have to search our thoughts. And wouldn't it be helpful if we had a better understanding of how thoughts worked? So that as we find these things, we can take accurate action to correct them. So I have a list of 8 laws of thought for you today. This may be way more than what we can get through. Who knows? Maybe it'll go real fast, but we will give this we'll give this a shot. And I've got 2 or 3 verses for each one to give it some support. The first law that I will give you, and I'm going to put this as laws of thought. Number 1 is the law of permission. The law of permission. And this law states that you can't change what you haven't given yourself permission to see differently. You can't change what you haven't given yourself permission to see differently. Now, the internet can be a wonderful place. It can also be a cesspool, right? And we're aware of both extremes. But a few years ago, there was there's been a couple of these things that have been, I guess you would call them viral. One is there was a picture of a dress. And it was, is the dress gold or is the dress green, I think was the color, right? You remember that one? And some people would look at it instantly and like, oh, that's green. And other people would be like, no, it's gold. It's not necessarily seen, but it's hearing. But there was the audio clip that was, do you hear brainstorm or do you hear green needle? And you had to give yourself permission to see these things differently because there was whatever you experienced first. And I seem to remember doing one of these things with Trace, and I was saying, here, check this out. And I hit play, and I heard one, and she heard the other, and I was like, what? How can that happen? Right? And so there's this perspective that we need to give ourselves permission to see things differently. You have to give yourself permission. There's a story in Scripture. It's in Luke chapter 15, starting at verse 11. Jesus is telling a story. He says there's a man and he had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Verse 17, when he came to his senses. If you're an underliner, perhaps that's a phrase to underline. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. Now, you probably recognize this. We call this the story of the prodigal son. But I want you to know that the prodigal son came to his senses. He gave himself permission to believe he could return home. There's some lost people out there today that need to be given permission to think a new way. Second law I will give you is the law of anticipation. Law of anticipation. And the law of anticipation says, when you can't wait to share it, others can't wait to hear it. When you can't wait to share, others can't wait to hear. Now, for this, we're going to go to the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 20, verses 8 and 9. Jeremiah writes, whenever I speak, I cry out proclaiming violence and destruction. So the word of the Lord has brought me insult and reproach all day long. But if I say, I will not mention his word or speak any more in his name, his word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. He cannot hold it in. Our thoughts cannot be contained. Luke 24, verse 32. This is the story of Jesus and the men on the road to Emmaus. And as they had the conversation, let me pull the full. Luke 24. We'll pick up at verse 30. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? They had been given new thoughts. And it moved them. It moved them. The next law that I will give you, law number 3. This is one of my favorite principles to teach at Camp for Kids in the morning. I don't know if that camp or if the counselors are actually anxious and excited about hearing these lessons, but these are lessons that I try to teach every year. And it's the law of focus. And I actually have three definitions for this. I'm sure you've heard them, heard me share them before, but I will give them to you here now. One definition is this: it's what you focus on expands. What you focus on expands. Now, I need to talk to the bandwagoners in the group. There are some of you that don't care a whole lot about sports, and then something exciting starts to happen. Okay. So, for example, a couple years ago, the Cockerton boys volleyball team made it to the state finals. And as they're getting through the season, there's a lot of people that start to take notice. And now they start going to the games. And now all of a sudden, what happens is the people that hadn't been aware of any of this before, they start knowing the players' names. Right? Maybe you have maybe you have a favorite pro sports team, whatever it turns out to be. But there's things that the more attention you give to it, the bigger it gets. The more you think about something, the more you learn about it. Right? That's a reality of how our thoughts work. What you focus on expands. Now, I also give the counselors this phrase, and it's what you look for is what you find. I typically teach this one with the game of I Spy. Who's played I Spy before? Right? I spy with my little eye something red. And everybody's looking at Ted right now. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Isn't that something? I actually saw Linda's red lunchbox up here, or whatever it is that she has, but it worked better with Ted's illustration, right? But it's what you look for is what you find. What you say, this is what I'm going to focus on, boom, you're able to find that. If I said look for something orange, like all of a sudden you start filtering this stuff out. Boom, boom, boom. Right? It happens. That's the way this is how our thinking works. So we need to recognize that what we focus on expands, what you look for is what you find. And this is perhaps the most important version of this law. And it's you become what you think about. Pay very close attention to that definition. You become what you think about. That's what the last several weeks have been like with my brother. His thoughts were continually of poor health. I shouldn't say continue. They were often. And whenever his thoughts went to that of poor health, he found himself in a place of despair. Found himself in a place of despair. And there's a story in Scripture, Matthew chapter 14. If you want to, I don't know that we have the capacity to read the whole thing today. But you're probably familiar with the story. Starting at we can read it. Verse 22, Matthew 14:22. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone. And the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. They were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Come, he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. Pause. Where is Peter's focus? And what is Peter doing? Walking on water. Let's read what happens in verse 30. You know this story. But when he saw the wind, when Peter saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. Where did Peter's thoughts go towards? The wind. Let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 26. We're going to look at verses 1, 2, and 3. In that day, this song will be sung in the land of Judah. We have a strong city. God makes salvation, its walls and ramparts. Open the gates that the righteous nation may enter, the nation that keeps faith. Verse 3. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you. You become what you think about. What you focus on expands. So that is the law of focus. Law number 4 is the law of substitution. All right? And the law of substitution is defined this way, and it's you can't just stop a thought. You must replace it. You must replace it. I'll just add this as sort of a corollary thought. Nature abhors a vacuum. You can't just say, I've got this stinking thinking that I don't like, I'll just get rid of it. Because like something has to take its place. Something has to take its place. Let's turn to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 12. Two, two, two. Let's pick up at verse 43 through 45. Jesus is teaching. He says, when an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through arid places seeking rest and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to the house I left. When it arrives, it finds the house unoccupied, swept clean, and put in order. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there, and the final condition of the person is worse than that of the first. This is how it will be with this wicked generation. So the idea is this, is that a spirit is cast out, but if nothing takes his place, if the spirit comes back and finds the house is empty, He brings friends. He brings friends. You can kick the spirit out, but somebody else best move in behind it. Romans chapter 12. Verse 21. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. I will tell you, there are times. There are times when the attacks come, and this is my own example. Maybe it resonates with you, maybe it does not. There are times when the enemy attacks and it starts telling you different lies, starts giving you different ideas, whatever that looks like. I have found that throwing my eyes on a cross is a very helpful tool. I have found that to be a very helpful tool. Trying not to worry doesn't work. Now, I have come to the conclusion that there are many people in my life who the only time that they are happy is when they are unhappy. Now, let me explain. It sounds bizarre. It sounds counterintuitive, does it not? But as I look back, especially over the course of the last month, I can see how my grandmother loved to worry about all sorts of nonsensical things. Nonsensical by my definition. They were not nonsensical by her definition. They deserved a lot of worry. I have observed that trait, that pattern of thinking has been passed along to my dad. I have seen it. I am reasonably sure the only time that he is happy is if he has something to worry about. For example, I have neighbors who have chickens. They do not have chicken feed. The chickens just roam around in the yard, which I thought was a good thing. Apparently, it's a better thing if you have chicken feed. I mean, you know this.
We got
We got to get the chicken feed. I got to get to town. What are you doing? The phone rings. Hey, what are you doing? What do you need me to do? Well, I got to get into town. I got to get some chicken feed. You don't have chickens. Yeah, but the neighbors do. Type of insanity is this? And then, so get the chicken feed. We get home. He's like, I got to get that chicken feed to the neighbors. I said, don't your neighbors know where you live? I've come to the conclusion that there's some people that are only happy when they're unhappy. And I noticed that with my brother. It seemed like he enjoyed being, he got himself in a bad place. He got himself stuck and he just, that's where he wanted to stay. I am teaching you these laws because bad times will come for all of us. Some more severe, some less severe, some more frequent, some less frequent. What I want you to be is I want you to be equipped with these principles. Start exercising these principles now. Maybe you've already done a good job with that. Maybe, I hope that you have. Maybe you've never given it any consideration. I was well into my 40s before I gave this any consideration. And now that I see it, I see these things happen all around us. I see these things happen all around us. And part of sharing this is to prepare you for that. Now, what I want to make sure that I qualify here is that substitution is not distraction. It's not distraction. You see, there's times when things go on, and my dad says, "Oh, I just need to get distracted. I need to." He'll go and he'll cut firewood or whatever it is. Like he'll go and he'll have a time of distraction. But as soon as that distraction is done, what happens is it goes back to the chicken feed. Oh, I gotta get that chicken feed. It's substitution. We have to replace the thoughts. You invite those good thoughts in, and it will kick the bad thoughts out. How am I doing time-wise, Trey? 7 seconds. Okay. Now, this is where we're going to end. I got four more laws. Maybe we'll do those next week. You can tell me if this has been of any value to you. But my brother says to me Wednesday night, "Why can't you go with me?" And I was dealing with selfishness. I was, it was a severe case. A severe case of selfishness. I mean, I was supposed to take Kent to MacBids on Thursday. I knew that was going to get thrown out the window. Kent took lemons and made it lemonades. He said, "I'll just make it a date day with his wife." And Kent, in all honesty, I didn't know that MacBids could be that romantic. It hasn't been a thought in many of the trips that I've been there. But anyway, but I end up in the emergency room. And tests are being done, and there's time as the tests are being analyzed and reviewed, and all these different things. And I get a text message from Trace, which I ignore. Well, I ignore all text messages after 9 o'clock, and most of the ones that happen during the day, just as an aside. But Trace then calls, and she says, "Jess, one of our counselors is in the emergency room. He needs somebody to go pray with him." And that kind of made sense because I had seen somebody, at least an adult that I had recognized from camp. I'm not really good with names. I do struggle with that. This goes back to that selfishness thing. There's part of me that doesn't care. But you're supposed to laugh at that. And that's supposed to be a pity laugh, just as an aside. But I said, that's the mother. Okay. Let me go. So I knew where the room was. I went, and I'm now the weird guy standing outside of a ER department room at midnight. And nurse comes in, nurse comes out, and I just said, "Hey, the kid in this room is one of our counselors from church camp, and I'm here to pray with him." And I can only imagine how bizarre that had to seem to the nurse. And she said, "Thank you, sir. Why don't you go back to the waiting room?" And I said, "No, no, no, no. I'm here with my brother, but I just got word that this is what it is." And I'm showing her the text message that I ignored, but now I'm showing it to her. And she said, "Well, let me see if I can get permission from the mother." I said, "Okay, I'm around the corner. I'm around the corner." So I went around the corner. I did not go back into my brother's room. I just stood on the other side of the curtain. And I don't know how long it was. There's probably timestamps on the text messages. But sometime later, the nurse came around the corner and said, "They'd like you to pray with them." And in spite of the horrible attitude I had, God was doing something rather amazing that night. Um, I had the opportunity to go in and pray with that young man and his mom. And as soon as we were done, they were to get into an ambulance and go to Pittsburgh. I don't know. I don't know that I have an update on where they are right now. I don't know that I don't know that my prayer calmed them down. I certainly hope that it did. I hope it gave them some peace, some perspective for the ride. Um, but I say that because you have to be open to those noble thoughts. You have to be open. You've got to reject, like I said, I was struggling with selfishness. My focus was not necessarily on the right place for what I did get two Burger King double cheeseburgers in the deal, but like, um, I share that with you because this is what I'm learning. I wish I could tell you that I've learned it. I no, I'm still being taught these lessons time and time and time again. Maybe one day I'll learn them. Maybe one day I'll learn them. So I share that with you for your own perspective and encouragement. That if you think the right way, you may find yourself in places that you did not expect to be, and you may find yourself used in a way that you did not expect to be used. So with that, we will wrap here, and as we traditionally do, we will circle the room to pray.